Welcome to More or Less. I'm Charlotte McDonald. Insert your Christmas-themed number joke here. Over the last few weeks, there has been one hot topic in the More or Less inbox: Bitcoin. Loyal listeners have contacted us about big claims in the media they've seen about Bitcoin and energy.
Bitcoin mining consumes more electricity a year than Ireland.
By July 2019, the Bitcoin network will require more electricity than the entire United States currently uses.
I think we should probably start with the basics. What is Bitcoin? And why does it need a lot of electricity? With me to help is Jordan Dunbar. Hello, Jordan. Do you know lots about Bitcoin?
I mean, I know a little bit, but think of me as representing the role of the listener, always ready with smart questions and a sharp wit.
Yeah, okay. Bitcoin is a form of electronic money. Now, the electronic bit is not that special. It's commonplace.
You mean, for example, I can access my bank account online. My employer pays my wages into my bank account electronically, and then I can transfer that money to other people or companies if I want.
Exactly. But for this to work, you need to trust people.
Yeah, I guess I need to trust my employer to send the money to my bank.
And on top of that, you have to trust the government not to print too many notes or run the economy in a bad way that devalues your money. So, Jordan, do you trust your employer?
Yes, everyone trusts the BBC.
And do you trust the banks?
Most of the time.
OK, now what about the government and the politicians in charge? Do you trust them?
What are you getting at, Charlotte? Why are we talking about trust?
Because the first rule of Bitcoin is trust no one.
Trust no one, Mr. Mulder.
The whole idea behind Bitcoin is to have a form of electronic money where you don't need to trust anyone. No trusting banks and no trusting governments. So Bitcoin is not just the money, it's a whole alternative financial system where transfers are not done between banks, but between individuals. Bitcoin uses cryptography, computers and calculations to provide the trust and record the transactions securely. Every 10 minutes, they recalculate where every Bitcoin is. This is then written into what Bitcoin calls a block.
So there's a big computer somewhere doing all this clever stuff and making the blocks.
Yeah, OK, so one way of doing this would be to have a giant computer doing this work. But who would own it? And could you really trust them?
Remember, trust no one.
Exactly. The Bitcoin solution is to have thousands of computers doing this work. And in that way, nobody is in charge and you don't have to trust anyone.
But who's going to provide these thousands of computers to do all this work? They're not going to create these blocks for free.
Bitcoin's founder had a simple solution to that. If you run the software on your computer and help to do the calculations, you have a chance of being rewarded with some Bitcoins. The original Bitcoin manifesto compared the process to gold miners, using their resources to dig for gold to turn into coins. But in the Bitcoin's case, it isn't manual labour and pickaxes that are used to mine, but computing power and electricity that gets you your gold.
How much Bitcoin gold can people mine?
Every 10 minutes, 12.5 Bitcoins are mined, or 1,800 a day. If you put that in dollar terms, that's around $30 million of Bitcoins mined every 24 hours.
Wow. Okay, now I see why you might want to do it.
If you just have one computer working in the Bitcoin system, you have almost no chance. But if you run thousands of computers in huge buildings in China, for example, you can probably rely on earning some coins.
Now, hold on. I'm confused. So it's not guaranteed that you'd earn them?
No, it's a bit like the lottery. If you buy one ticket, you have a tiny, tiny chance of winning. But if you buy 5% of the tickets or join a syndicate, you have a much better chance.
How much electricity do all these computers use?
Well, we don't know. It is impossible to come up with an accurate figure of Bitcoin electricity use.
Ah, come on, Charlotte. We've never let accuracy hold us back before.
I guess it's time for some assumptions and some estimates. And to help, we've been talking to Alex de Vries, a data analyst who runs the Digiconomist Bitcoin blog. His figures are frequently quoted in the media, but we're not just going to rely on them.
Yes, remember, trust no one.
We're going to try and work out an absolute minimum for electricity use and also an absolute maximum. First, for the minimum. We know how much computational power the Bitcoin network has. So Alex says, imagine all the computers were ultra efficient. How much electricity would they use?
If we do that, we can quite easily come up with a, let's say, absolute minimum energy consumption figure for the whole Bitcoin network. So right about now, if you make this calculation, you would find that the whole network uses roughly 13 terawatt hours per year.
13 terawatt hours. That sounds a lot, but is it?
Okay, it's about the same amount of electricity used each year as a small country like Uruguay or Slovenia, countries with populations of about 2 to 3 million. This is the lowest level Bitcoin energy use possible.
So it's a bit like trying to guess how much petrol a country uses by presuming everyone is driving a brand new super efficient car, i.e. it's never going to happen.
Yeah, it's never going to happen. But at least it gives us a solid minimum. Now let's come up with a maximum. We know how much money all these Bitcoin miners are making because they get 12.5 Bitcoins every 10 minutes, plus some transaction fees. Now let's just presume that every Bitcoin earned as a reward for mining was being spent on electricity. That would pay for 140 terawatts per year.
Or using the international unit of electricity, about 10 Slovenias.
Or about a Sweden or a Ukraine, who both use around 140 terawatt hours, or a bit less than half the UK. But remember, that's making an assumption that we know isn't true, as there are lots of other costs, and we're presuming no profit. But at least we have an upper bound.
So we know that Bitcoin does use as much electricity as a country. We just don't know exactly which country. It's a country that's bigger than Slovenia, but smaller than Sweden. So on that basis, our first claim that Bitcoin uses the same amount of electricity as Ireland seems reasonable. Now, the other claim suggested that by 2019, Bitcoin would be using the same amount of electricity as the United States of America. Can that really be true?
The USA uses a lot of electricity. They use over 4,000 terawatt hours per year.
Whoa, 300 Slovenias a year?
Exactly. So even with Bitcoin's fast growth, I think we can rule that claim out. But should a system for transferring money be using as much power as even a small country? It's quite sobering if you compare an electronic transfer by Bitcoin to, say, Visa, for example.
The Bitcoin transaction takes at least 20,000 times more electricity per unique transaction than the Visa transaction does, or 60,000 times if we take a more realistic number.
Bitcoin is designed to be secure with no one in charge, so skeptical Bitcoin people are unlikely to want to change the system.
Remember, trust no one.
No, that's too much.
Sorry. Okay, just again? Go again? I'll go again. Remember, trust
Don't
Not-
go all...
Liam Neeson. Sorry, I was channeling Liam Neeson. Okay. Remember, trust no one.
Bitcoin's popularity may fade, but in the short term, the trend is clear. In the last year, electricity consumption tripled, while the value of Bitcoin went up by a factor of 20, making it worthwhile for miners to keep on going.
Looking at the numbers currently, there is a whole lot of room for that number to triple again in the next year.
That's all we have time for this week. Thanks to Alex de Vries and Jordan Dunbar. Goodbye.
Our brand new podcast series, The Assassination, is about an unsolved murder with global ramifications. It's an investigation into the assassination of one of the world's most prominent politicians, Pakistan's Benazir Bhutto. Subscribe now and you won't miss episode 1. Search for The Assassination where you get your podcasts.